This is Lead Live, conversation for ministry leaders by ministry leaders. Today's conversation will focus on how to take Easter online. Josh, what's up, friend? How you doing?
Hanging in there. How about you, man?
Man, we're doing good. The Bieri household, it's wild, but the kids are getting into a groove with schooling, and we're just continuing to keep on, man. It's been crazy, but it's been good. God's been doing some good things. It's really been awesome.
It's been fun to be a part of these with you. I'm excited for our topic today, just because a lot of ministry leaders are thinking about this now that you've realized and hopefully grieved the reality that the things you've been thinking about and planning for your Easter service coming up here aren't going to be able to happen at your physical location or where you normally meet. How do you pivot and what do you do now?
Yeah, I saw somebody post like, I've got all these palm branches. Now what do I do? You know, and so people are like, well, I don't know. So I think they're sending them around to their local churches so that they can get people videotaping, like waving palm branches at their houses or something. So yeah, and you're exactly right. Like we've really got to think through, and you know, I think I'm coming more to grips with Easter is an experience. We love the experience of Easter. There's so much good representation. But as I heard one buddy say, yeah, man, we're doing Easter. We're hiding in our houses and we're hoping something good happens. And I mean, that sounds very early church. Like that sounds right to me. At the same time, I think I'm learning that online is an experience, and we can build experiences for our church members, for their lost friends that they can easily access. And so I'm excited for that innovation as we kind of turn our attention towards Easter for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Man, I grew up here in the Easter is the Super Bowl for churches, but sports have been canceled.
Absolutely.
And so what do we do with all of those things?
Yeah.
And I think that if we are willing to take up the challenge, we can innovate and maybe even reach more people than we would have before.
I totally agree. And so let's bring in two guests that are innovating. They're from the Twin Cities. Pastor Greg, Pastor Kong is with us for this conversation about how to take Easter online. Hey guys, it's good to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, so Greg, explain a little bit about RiverLife and your ministry there in the Twin Cities, and just introduce you and Kong and your ministry there.
Sure. So my name is Greg Rhodes. I'm the lead pastor at RiverLife. We're a fairly young church plant within the Alliance. We are 5 years old, 5.5 years old almost, and we're about a medium-sized church. We prior to all of this, we would have around 250 or so on a Sunday. About a third of our congregation are kids and youth. So it's a very young church. And specifically, our mission is to bring hope, healing, and growth to second and third gen Hmong. So we have a very specific audience that we're trying to reach.
Yeah.
And Kong, why don't you share a little bit, introduce some folks who aren't familiar with the Hmong a little bit.
Yeah, so Hmong is spelled H-M-O-N-G. We're a small Asian minority population that originates from Southeast Asia. My parents grew up in Laos and then were refugees during the Vietnam War, relocated. They were relocated here in the Midwest. And so my parents kind of grew up in the Wisconsin, Minnesota area, eventually settled down in Minnesota. In the Twin Cities, I think, Greg, I think you might have the numbers, but like what, 80 to 100,000 total of people?
Yeah. Community leaders estimate 100,000. Census data has it down in the 60,000 plus.
Yep. So in terms of most concentrated, the Twin Cities here has the most concentrated Hmong population, whereas California, I think, has the largest population. And so, there's just pockets of us throughout the states, Midwest being a really big concentrated population. And then out on the West Coast, we have a pretty big population as well, too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And what my wife and I, prior to RiverLife, what my wife and I saw, we were both attending Hmong churches. As you can tell, I am not Hmong. Kong is. My wife is Hmong, however, and we had, prior to church RiverLife, we had been a part of Hmong churches for over 10 years, and I had served with the youth primarily. And what we saw over the years was more and more youth having a harder and harder time spiritually connecting in their parents' churches. And the church is having a harder and harder time spiritually feeding the younger people. And so we saw what the Chinese and Korean churches saw in the late 80s to 90s, what the mainstream denominations have seen for the last 30, 40 years, but the young people leaving the church, really spiritually hurt and broken and distant from God. And so my wife and I had a huge burden for that. And so we started dreaming and praying. And through God working, RiverLife is the result of that.
That's awesome. That's so good. Well, now that we're in this COVID-19 era, and I guess in probably 10 months or so, we'll have a whole bunch of COVID-19 babies and all those types of things. I guess I'm wondering, like, as you guys have begun to talk with your team at RiverLife, what are some of the, talk to us about some of the conversations you guys are having about Easter Sunday, the experience of it all, and how you all are trying to still rally everyone together. Because I think one of the concerns that I would have as a pastor is I feel distant. I am distant from them. How am I going to rally them together? How do I round them up? How do I think about lost people, seekers, new people, and all of this? But talk to Josh and I about the conversations you all are having about taking Easter online. How do you even start that? Oh, hey, it's canceled. What are we going to do? I mean, how did you start that conversation?
Well, certainly it started with some mourning, because we've been doing the last 4 years, we've been doing a big Easter egg hunt, and last year was 10,000 eggs. This year was going to be 13,000 eggs, and it's huge. Easter, we have double our attendance on Easter because it's such a wonderful family event, and we have so many families and so many young kids, and we love it. So all of a sudden, a few weeks back, like, it all hit us. We aren't going to be able to do that. And that was really, really hard. So that was the first thing. And you even mentioned it earlier, is kind of mourning some of the loss of what we were used to. So that's one thing. I think a couple of our leadership values that have been in place that are helping us now is, first, we talk about being high risk, low anxiety. If you imagine a 2x2 grid with low anxiety, high anxiety, and low risk and high risk, everybody falls in one of those four squares. From the beginning, we really advocated for being high risk, low anxiety, which means we are very comfortable with trying new things. We're comfortable with experimentation, and we're pretty comfortable with failing our experiments. And so we had that going into this whole online service. And previously we did not do online services. This is the first of it, was 3 weeks ago. But we have this great foundation of, let's try it. It's like we describe it as a yes culture. So should we try using OBS? Yes, let's do it. Should we try setting up? Should we do it from the church service? Yes. Oh, wait, we're all on stay at home. Let's do it from our homes. Yes. And that's been wonderful. So that's gone a long way in helping us establish to be able to step into some things we had never done. The other thing that we've got going for us is we're a pretty tech savvy church. I was a computer programmer for 10 years. We've got an amazing lead sound engineer. Our worship director is very tech. So we've got three really tech savvy people and we've been able to learn some things really quickly. So I know, and not every church either shares that value or has that skill set, but we've been lucky enough to have that. So we've been able to craft some services, and we've been experimenting for a few weeks now. And this past weekend, we kind of landed on a structure that we're going to continue for Easter, and it worked really well. So this structure will kind of form the foundation of what the Easter service will look like, with just some added bonuses. And I know, Kong, you were working on kind of putting some of that structure together and thinking through some of that. So why don't you share what kind of, particularly this past weekend, what we did with our stream?
Definitely. I think one of the important values that we landed on was this idea of not recreating service online, but really reinventing service online. So we realized that we couldn't simply film service and live stream it. I mean, we could, but the experience would be really different. I mean, think of watching your favorite YouTube video. You know, a commercial pops up, and you know you're like, oh man, this is distracting what I want to watch. Or you watch something you don't want to watch, you flip to something else. And so we decided to find a way to kind of reinvent service online to see what that could be like for our people watching at home. And so in our live stream, we took into consideration, we wanted to make it shorter. So service on a Sunday goes for about an hour and a half. We decided to cut it down to an hour. And within that hour, we decided to split into what we called segments. And so we'd have 3 to 5 minute segments of things that would be humorous. It'd be a slideshow of pictures. We'd throw in a song. There'd be some scripture reading. There would be corporate prayer. The sermon was probably the longest part. And even the sermon itself, we're trying to limit it to about 10, maybe no more than 15 minutes long. And so it's this idea of breaking up into segments so that in terms of how we watch things online, our attention span can last instead of just having it run for an hour and a half straight. And so that's kind of our format to how we've been doing service the last week. And
so take us through some of those like, how do you name those segments? Like, so you have a segment, like I saw, Bible reading, and I'd like to take our audience actually to your page to look at these different segments. But can you just name or identify the segments that you guys built out or are thinking through?
For sure. So I mean, like as of last week, like our first part would be like a welcome. And so it was a really like laid back. Greg was the one who's producing all this. And so it was really laid back where it was just Greg and his wife Pangful, like on the couch welcoming, like, hey, this is what's going to look like. It's going to be really casual. They had like the segment of like, this is what, doing service at home looks like. And so they had like a slideshow of them in pajamas and like bathrobes. And so it was really funny. And then we love interacting with our congregation online. And so we'd have like maybe a minute or two of just, hey, if you're out there, say hi, or, as people popped up on the live stream and we would see them, and we our platform for live streaming is Facebook, we would just do shout outs like, oh, hey, I see, Johan's on, I see that Kenny's on, I see that Joe's on, I see that, whoever's on. And so we just do shout outs for a little bit. And then we would dive into, I think last week we went into like a video, kind of just a video reminding our congregation that, oh yeah, we're still the church, even though we're not meeting at the building anymore. So it's a video that we found online that we paid for. And then we just go into a section of worship where our worship leader pre-recorded something. And so that part then kind of took on a format of what our church service would look like, but then again, it was just shorter segments instead of longer segments. And so instead of doing three songs straight, it'd just be one song here, and then we would fill it in with maybe scripture reading after that, and then we would put in another song. And so again, it's just this idea of limiting it to 3 to 5 minute bites versus sitting through like a 15-minute worship session. Was there anything that you wanted to add to that, Greg?
No, that's good. And so I ran it through OBS, Open Broadcast Source or System, or but yeah. So I kind of acted as producer, and we had all of the pre-recorded videos queued up. I created the order and queued all the systems, all the videos in OBS, and so I sat there to kind of acting as I was sort of opener. I would talk in transitions and then play the videos at their appropriate times. And so we had 3 songs. 2 of them were recorded by our worship director just in his little basement studio. And then the third one that we did, or it was the middle one actually, but it was, we took one of our recorded songs from a previous service. And really, we originally did that just to make it easier on our worship director, so he's not having to record 3 songs. And it was just one of our older recordings. It was, in fact, from Christmas service. And it turns out people loved it. We jokingly kind of called it a rerun, but people loved it. And people would comment right there on Facebook. They'd say, oh, I miss church. I love seeing the lights. It's so great to see the sanctuary again. So even playing an old song, people really loved. And then I would, during things like the prayer, we had a corporate prayer, or the Bible reading, I would overlay the text on top of Kong reading, for instance. And I'd have those prepped before as PowerPoint slides, and I'd just overlay the graphics. So that was actually one of the other things that we added new, was to add some interactive elements. So we did a scripture reading where I told everyone, read this out loud, have whoever's with you read it out loud, because we wanted people to feel a part of it. We didn't just want them to watch a video for an hour. We did a corporate prayer where we had everybody reading a prayer we had up on the screen. And those are two things we hadn't done in our live services before. But we wanted that interactive, that sense that they are a part of what was happening. It wasn't just a recorded start to end service.
Yeah, so I love the combination of, we repurposed, we reused some things, we thought differently about that. And I would encourage those of you who are watching that you have to try this out. So you need to develop, record it, play with it, practice with the software. Just don't think that you're going to show up on Sunday morning and kind of give it a whirl, because that's going to be disastrous. Like, I just got kicked out a few minutes ago out of the stream. And thankfully it continues on. But, as the producer, you get kicked out of the stream and you're like, oh no, what do I do? Well, you don't panic. You just get back in and it's going to keep on moving. So you have to practice some of these things. So what I want to do briefly here is I want to show you a couple of these elements that Greg is talking about. So I've gotten on and shared my screen. And so I'm going to just kind of hover through here, and I don't want to play the audio. So I hope that it will not do that. I want us to be able to talk over top of this stream.
Yeah, you might be able to mute the audio.
Yeah, there we go.
There
All
you
right,
go.
Cool. So I'm just going to drag through this. So first off, I love this. Our stream will begin shortly. What do you think that does for a viewer, Greg?
So I added that kind of the day before. I added some intro and outro, and really what it was if someone came to our Facebook page, I wanted them to be able to log on already. We did a countdown, because then it lets them know that this will happen. It is going to happen. You could just leave the computer or your phone on this page, because in 4 minutes we're going to get going.
Yeah.
And then I added, because since the countdown seemed a little boring, I added this scrolling text on the bottom, which was half Bible verse, half jokes, half like, is anybody actually reading this? So, so here we move into our intro. There are dogs. One of the
which
things
every live stream is better with dogs. Let me just say that. Get the family pet in there. Easter is going to go up and to the right. So keep going, Greg.
That's right. Go buy some bunnies for your Easter live stream.
Right.
Totally right. And that was really intentional, because what we wanted was, we used language like from our house to yours. Let us join you in our living room. I intentionally wore a t-shirt. I didn't shave for a few days, because honestly, that's how I am most days now. So those are very intentional decisions that we made to give this, we're in our home, you're in your home. Let's do this together.
Well, and this is how people are viewing each other now. I mean, at least in Ohio, we've been locked inside for more than a week now. And so this is how we communicate with each other. And this is how it looks. So I appreciate that intentionality as you guys did that. Let me scroll through a little bit more and we'll see what other elements that we brought up the lightsaber. I had to hit that one. That was good stuff.
I had a good Star Wars joke in there.
And so here's one of your teammates. So this looks like in OBS, you're bringing in a teammate in order to have a bit of the service here. Yep.
So this was kind of one of our fails of the service. This was a FaceTime that we fed in through OBS. The problem was, as you can see, that it was stalling out. And essentially what happened was, we concluded the bandwidth that I have at home isn't enough to stream out and stream in. So I basically have 3 streams happening right now. So, and here he is with the song that he recorded. Again, this is just down in his basement. He threw up a black curtain in the background, and it was amazing. We loved it.
By the way, the audio quality on this is outstanding. He did such a good job. And I could totally, because of the words on the screen, people can follow along and sing along, and they really will feel like they're worshiping with him, even though this is pre-recorded, correct?
Yep, correct.
I mean, he did such a good job of leading people in. You honestly couldn't tell. I couldn't tell if it was live or not.
And that's what we heard after the fact, because I was really concerned about pre-recorded content. This is the first week we did it. And I was really concerned. But then it turns out that people said that if you missed the introduction, you would have no way of knowing that he wasn't live right there.
Yep. So then here's your scripture reading. Now, because I have the audio turned off, did you read or did you have people go, or was it just up on the screen and they read as they went? How did you deliver this?
I am voiceovering this live.
Okay.
Yep. So it started with a live shot of me explaining, we're going to do our scripture reading. We've been reading through James. We figured that would be a great book to read during this time. So I'm voiceovering as I'm clicking through the slides.
Okay, cool.
And one of the other things, so we've done 3 of these, and each week we've made changes. And one of the changes we made was I removed all of the background graphics from our slides. I usually have it all themed, but I said, nope, black background, white text to make it as simple. Because if someone's watching this on their phone, they're not going to care about background images, especially if it makes the text harder to read.
Yeah.
Great.
And text size is really important with that in mind too. If you're thinking that people are on their phones.
Yep. So we kind of follow that 6x6 guideline. They talk about 6 words, 6 lines of text.
Yeah.
So we make super big fonts.
That's good.
Good. So you can see some repurposed content here. I don't want to take tons of time, but this was a repurposed worship video that they pulled out of the vault here.
Yep.
Really good. Everything looks really great. Kong got into the stream here. And Kong, what were you doing? Was this the message for the morning?
Yeah, this was the sermon. This was also pre-recorded as well too. And so.
Okay. All right, so that played extraordinarily well, and I was like, oh, they brought him into the stream live, and I couldn't tell, but it was really cool how just these different elements in the segments began to fit together.
And then we also added the text onto the screen, Bible verses, big ideas. That was something new we had done last week as well, and that we got really positive feedback from that as well.
Good. And what's the software you're using for the graphic overlay?
So that one it's a combination of, so for Kong's, I did in a video software, Adobe Premiere. I pulled his up and then just threw on lower third text.
Yep.
Again, simple black background, white text. Nothing fancy. For the others, like the readings, those are just PowerPoint that I exported as images.
Great.
And then here we added some prayer request time. So this is my wife here. And so we were praying for people, and people could text or submit or like PM us prayer requests. And we actually got some. So we prayed for some people live in service. I was on my phone, as you can see me looking down. And that was really, really good. So we prayed for some people, and my wife just prayed for general families as well.
Great. And then looks like we have an outro song.
Yep, we did one closing worship song. Same thing with Johan here. Lyrics on the screen, and that wasn't something we did the first couple of weeks. That was really important. And then me kind of pray. We got one more prayer request while that song came in, so I added in a prayer for that person, and then I closed with a benediction.
Okay, yeah, that was and that benediction I think was wonderfully interactive and well represented as you're raising your hands here to indicate this is the action that we want you to take at home. Go ahead and do this. This isn't weird. I'm doing it. I'm leading in it. So it was nice. It was just a nice way of going, I know you're watching, and let's do this together in a virtual way. So, guys, that's really, really, really great stuff. Let me rewind this just a little bit to have this conversation quickly, and I want us to dive back into making Easter really special. Yeah. So one of the things that you guys at RiverLife do very well, in my opinion, and I had the honor of being with you guys a few weeks ago, is that I believe that you all are ridiculously intentional about what you do and when you do it and where you do it and why you do it. And I appreciate that about your culture and ministry. And so one of the things that I'm seeing, and Greg, you and I were talking about this before the broadcast began, was our websites are probably not ready to rock when it comes to a fully online immersive experience. And so some of us need to go back into the way that we've developed our online interactions and how we get people into our live streams before we get to Easter, so that our church members, potentially our family, extended family that we've invited to come into the stream and go to church with us that day, regardless of where they are, our relatives, our neighbors, friends from work. If we're going to send out links and invite requests to Easter, it's got to be scarily simple in order to get there. So one of the things is about your church first, and then bam, we're right into online services, only giving the information. What I love here is that it's just the second thing on the page. It's right there. I cannot miss it. Another thing I love is that this all in-person services canceled image is the header on the Facebook page, so I know I'm in the right spot. One suggestion I would give here is I've clicked so many times on the picture itself that maybe that image could be linked to get me in the right spot. And then this link takes me to your native Facebook page, which is fantastic. But in order to see the stream, you're going to have to scroll forever in order to get to the right spot. But by simply adding in the word live here that I'm typing in the top of my screen, I don't think you guys can see it. So it would be facebook.com/RiverLifeMN/live. It will take me to all of your past and upcoming live videos. So that's as simple. It gets people right to the right space and they're ready to go. And thankfully, Facebook emailed me a couple of days ago and said, hey, use this link. And I went, oh, well, that's extraordinary. So I don't know if they just did that here recently or if that's always been a thing. Yeah. But I went, oh, that's a game changer because you can get people right into the stream instead of them having to scroll and try to figure it out.
I just discovered that this weekend. And in fact, you can even see and this one I think is new. They added a possibility of a link if you over on the home post. They've added a live feature on the left side of the page.
Excellent.
And I never saw that before. So at least that one, the permanent URL, that might have always been there. But yeah, I didn't even think about adding it to the website. So great. Thank you, Clint. I'm going to do that this week.
No, but I think just making sure that, again, websites now are not advertising tools anymore. They are the front door to your churches. And so as we think about Easter and as we think about creativity, make sure you're getting people the right address and the right information, because if they don't have it, they're not going to be able to jump into your stream and they're not going to be able to jump into the stream on time. Final thought on just kind of web technology and all that is to schedule an event, stream into that particular event, and then boost the event. So what I mean by boosting is pay money to advertise and then do it in a geography. Do it within the Twin Cities or do it like people who like your page and their friends. Like there's very simple ways to do that. And it doesn't cost like $10 will get you an extra 200 or 300 impressions. And so many people are online right now. It's like the boosting posts are on sale because you're getting so many more eyeballs because Facebook is just posting it and there's more engagement. So think about boosting your events as a part of advertisement to reach seekers during this time. So let's get out of that world and let's get back into kind of Easter creativity. So Josh, why don't you talk to us a little bit about how you guys are thinking? What are you thinking about first, online creativity? And let's try to generate some ideas together, Greg, Colin, myself, and Josh, about what other ideas could we bring to our audience? This is how we could make Easter 2020 really memorable and special.
Yeah, Greg and Kong, I appreciate you guys sharing your thoughts on how you're thinking through your services in those segments and to continue that through Easter. I think that's a beautiful thing to mix the live and the pre-recorded in a way that you've thoughtfully produced it and is interactive with people. I think that's great. So I pastor a local church here in Columbus, Ohio, and we're just like you, pivoting to rethink Easter. For us, it's a time of celebration and baptisms and celebrating new life in Christ. And so we've been trying to think through other things. We haven't historically done an Easter egg hunt like you guys have, but we're going to do like a family Easter egg driving hunt. And so we're thinking through how families can get in the car and get out of the house and take a picture of video at certain locations where nobody else is going to be, and then post all of those things just to kind of be participating in the same thing with one another. Our online service, we're garnering testimonies from people in order to share during the service and things like that. So I'd love to hear how you're thinking through some creative Easter experiences online.
Yeah, well, so I'll share our Easter idea, because if you'd asked me 48 hours ago, I was in an utter panic. One of the things we're going to be trying out this week, and then hopefully next week as well. Kong, why don't you talk about the user-generated content idea that we've been talking about?
Yeah. So recently we just threw out on Facebook, like, hey, send us something funny, send us something inspirational. So we wanted to get our congregation to connect with us, or further connect with us. And so we're asking them to send in content for us. And so we're asking them to record, short video clips, like no more than 2-3 minutes, maybe even less, of something funny, something inspirational. It could be testimonies. It could be, songs that they're singing. It could be even something funny. And then they're sending in to us, and then we're taking those videos and we're finding ways to incorporate it into our live stream service. So that's one thing that we're looking at in preparation for this coming weekend for Easter. So finding ways to just incorporate our people and their content, and how can we use them in our service.
Yeah, that's great.
And I just checked the email. So we've got one, and then someone sang a song and sent it in, which is awesome. And then we've got one testimony. Someone's going to work on that and send it in. So we've got at least 2. So this is sort of our test, because what I'm really hoping then is it can build some excitement this week. And then next week I'll put out, send us your best Easter video. And then we could do that same idea next week, kind of like Josh, what you're talking about. And so that's something new we're going to be testing this week. So for Easter, so I again, like a lot of us are scrambling of like, oh my gosh, Easter is 2 weeks away. That's where I was in sort of a panic on Monday morning. And so I had heard a couple ideas that I combined into one. So one of them was, thanks to one of my favorite guys that I watch, Brady Shearer at ProChurchTools.com. He gave some Easter ideas, and one of them was an Easter in a box idea. And what it was a box full of little tokens and trinkets that everybody in the service could have and like hold during the first song. And then the person leading the service can reference, okay, take out this, take out that. And so everybody, it's the sense of building a live community within a virtual community. So everybody is holding on to that palm leaf that they're shaking in front of you. And so there's that idea, Easter in a box. And the other one that I'd heard of before was, this one came from Family Life, and they call them resurrection eggs. And there are a dozen eggs, and each egg carries a little symbol of something in the Holy Week story. And they have 12 of these that go through each little, and then you walk through. And so I kind of took both of those and combined them. And so we're going to do these, what I'm calling Easter mystery bags, Easter mystery eggs. Tying on, anyone with kids knows that mystery eggs are just like the craziest thing around. Kids love them. 80 parents know what mystery eggs are, surprise eggs. And so we're kind of taking that angle. And so what we're going to do is I've come up with 9 eggs. So I'm going to take the Holy Week story, and we're going to have 9 eggs that we put in a bag. And we're gonna pack these. And then I also got some like a little Easter tract, an adult version and a kid's version. We're going to throw in some jelly beans in there and stickers, things like that. So we're going to make up these bags, and then families will be able to pick them up like a couple days before, the day before. We'll do a non-contact drive-up pickup where they can just pick up as many kids bags. We'll have kids bags and adult bags, as many kids bags as they need and adult bags, and then head home. And so what what we're going to have in them is, so like it'll start with the first egg will be a palm frond. So like, and we're trying to reuse as much stuff around church as possible because obviously finances are a little tighter these days. So we are trying to reuse everything. So we've got palm fronds that we would use to lay down the center aisle. You know what? I am cutting those up and we're going to put them in eggs. And we have a ton of eggs because each year when we do the Easter egg hunt, we ask parents, hey, leave your eggs here and we'll reuse them. Why throw them away when we can reuse them the next year? So we've got bins full of eggs. We don't have to buy those. And then I just ordered stuff on Amazon and it's things like, so we've got the palm leaf. It's, I was just pulling out, I got some purple cloth and white cloth. So I bought these little plastic crown of thorn bracelets on Oriental Trading Company. So we're going to put that and a little piece of purple cloth in the egg when we talk about the trial. And then a little strip of leather. I bought some leather scraps. And so a little strip of leather about Jesus getting beaten. A little cross, again, Oriental Trading Company. So we're going to do that through 9 eggs, put them in these baskets. And so the teaching time will be me walking through the Easter story with these different eggs. And I'm even working with our worship director that if one of the songs has a particular theme, we might do an egg for that song. So that's a little idea of these mystery eggs that we're going to do. We're going to number them. So like I've ordered number stickers 1 through 9. So it'll be easier to follow. I learned that from the big Lego sets. They have all the pieces in numbered bags, which was brilliant.
Right.
And we already had the bags because we use those as our visitor gift bags. We had the eggs, so about maybe half the stuff we already had lying around church. We had stickers from our kidsmen, and then the other half I ordered or bought. Like nails for the adult bag. We're gonna have 3 nails with the cross. Not doing that with the kids bag.
Right.
And for like the Last Supper, we're going to do a prepackaged communion. And one of the things we do for our little kids when we do communion in services, we call them blessing crackers. They're really animal crackers. So for all the kids' bags are going to have a communion pack and a blessing cracker, an animal cracker. If they're too young, if they're old enough to take communion, then they do that. If not, they get to enjoy the animal cracker, which is something that they'll know from service. So that's kind of our Easter idea. And our desire, my real desire is that people, that Easter becomes really special. And then the whole idea of the mystery eggs, I'm going to close with reading some out of 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul talks about the gospel. Our resurrection is a mystery. That we start with perishable and we end up imperishable, and it is a mystery. And so that's kind of how I'm going to end it. See, I'm all even getting all goosebumpy thinking about giving people that word of the mystery of Easter. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Greg and Kong, I think it's really cool how you're trying to figure out how to give some physicality, something to hold touch when we can't do that with one another. We see each other, we're on screens with one another all the time, but to be able to hold something that somebody else is holding, it just aids in that experience. And I think that's a really cool, creative way to think through your Easter service.
So Kong, everyone out there, everyone out there, if you're still kind of panicking about what to do with these, you can still order this stuff. Like Amazon can still get it to you by next week. So I Googled online, I Googled resurrection eggs DIY, and there are a whole bunch of folks who did DIY versions of the Family Life Easter egg, the resurrection eggs, and I just came up with our own version.
That's great.
Right. So Kong, how are you guys mobilizing the rest of the church? I mean, hopefully it's not just like Greg and Peng Fua, like stuffing leather into eggs, but how are you now mobilizing, the rest of team leadership, elders and families, other families are like, I want to serve. Like, how are you guys going about that in the midst of like kind of lockdown? Don't go outside your house as much as you possible. Like, how are you then mobilizing? Because I hope it's not just Greg and Peng Fu at their kitchen table trying to get these eggs built. But maybe that's the case, Greg. I don't know. But how are you trying to mobilize people?
Definitely. I mean, that's a great question, Clint. Greg and I were just talking about this the other day, figuring out like how do we do this, because it's going to be a ton of eggs that Greg will have to stuff by himself if we don't figure out how to do this. And so we thought about, okay, in Minnesota we have that stay-at-home order, and so with people working in the church, we're still considered essential workers, and so we can still be at the church if needed. So we were like, maybe we could do that, but also maintain a 6 feet distance from each other if needed. Or maybe we could pack, all the supplies needed, and then we just ask our leaders to come pick them up. Those have been a couple ideas that we floated, and so we're still trying to kind of figure out like how can this look like to have our entire team help us out in this. Kind of apart from Easter, I mean, we're exploring different options for the rest of our leaders. And so like our life groups, our small groups, life groups, we've just launched them a couple weeks, maybe a month before this whole COVID-19 situation. And so we're asking them, we're starting to explore like, what does that look like for you to maybe start meeting online through Zoom, through Google Hangout. With our youth ministry, we kind of split across the week where, we have a day where we're teaching. We have a day where we're just online playing games with the students. We have a day where we're just, chit-chatting on Facebook Messenger, whatever it is. And so we're just finding ways to kind of reinvent what ministry looks like on mediums that we can use without having to step over any of the laws and policies and orders that are in place for our safeties. And so it's just finding ways to be creative through what we have right now. So those are a couple ways that I could think of now.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Greg, any way else that you guys are thinking about just getting people involved during this time of especially when you're trying to put on such a physical, I mean, it's so tactile. How in the world are you going to pull that off and not pull your hair out? Well, you don't have any hair, but
as you can see, I've completely failed at that. And the truth is, I don't have a great answer to that. I swung by church yesterday for the first time in a week or so, just to survey what we had there. And I ended up staying there sorting our eggs because we wanted to be able to do them by color. And what do we do to really honor not just the state recommendation to stay at home, but also people's desire to be safe and people's desire, particularly with a younger congregation. We see this isn't just about safety, but this is also, we are playing our part in the health of Minnesota, something larger. And so I don't know. It's crossed my mind. Could this be me going down each day and I put in a few hours stuffing eggs? Or maybe Kong and I take turns, but we go at different times, so we're not even in the building at the same time. And I know we're essential workers and all that, but I've really felt the conviction that this is not the time that I want to be fighting for our rights as a church.
Right.
I want to be doing everything I can to honor the letter and spirit of the law and the recommendations, and also be a good model for the rest of our congregation. I don't have a great answer to that yet. But
that's
hoping over the next few days we'll get some things figured out. And I'm probably leaning toward the idea of having folks on our ministry team volunteer at different hours at different times of the day. So nobody is there at the same time.
Yeah, that's good.
Good.
Yeah, that's really good. Josh, what else could we, guys, at the end of these usually have a final thought, so get prepared for that. But Josh, what else would we offer to ministry leaders as they are, within 2 weeks, we're going to pull the trigger on one of the biggest Sundays of the year, and just creative ideas on how we can take Easter online. Any other thoughts that you have? I
don't know if I have any other thoughts, but I would just say, do what best serves your church. So often Easter is a big outreach experience. Maybe it's your most produced service during the year. You think through some extras in order to up the level for your guests. But I think if you're really genuine with your church family, even if you're not super techie, I love the idea of crowdsourcing some material from your people so that they can serve one another in that online environment. Is a great thing. And even if other people join in and see that, I think that testimony of loving one another well in that, in this time, is one of the best things that we can do.
Yeah.
That's great. Hey, you know what? There's actually a couple of people who have posted some ideas. So Jordan said they're going to do an Easter parade in their cars, driving through the neighborhood or other living communities with signs, "He's risen, Happy Easter, God loves you, we're not alone." We're still working on it based on the travel advisories, but it sounds like something that, a lot of people, you're seeing more and more kind of car parades and that sort of thing. Jordan, I think that's a pretty awesome idea.
Cool
and then
idea.
Mike, man, hey, you're welcome. We appreciate these conversations. I learned so much from the guests that we have on Lead Live, but can you repeat or type in the link directly to Facebook? Yeah, I'm going to type it in. So basically it's just facebook.com/ and then whatever your page is called, whether it's numbers or you've like kind of said, hey, this little domain URL is mine. Like ours for Lead is @LeadCMA. So it would just be facebook.com, and I'll just use Lead as an example here, /LeadCMA, and then /live. And that's going to be a direct link to your live videos, both upcoming, if you scheduled them, upcoming, or previously. And that's something else that Facebook is now allowing you to do, is schedule these events. And so it's nice to be able to let people know that, hey, this is coming, or this is a thing, and they say, I'm interested. And then because they click the interested button, they're going to get a notification about 15 to 20 minutes before the stream begins, so that they can get all their systems set up, which is really cool. I think another piece of tech, we're using StreamYard.com. It's very similar to OBS, but StreamYard, it is a paid service. I think it's worth those dollars, only because as a producer, I get to see a heads-up display. I could boot somebody out of the stream if they're live, if they're just, I can get rid of them. I can pull them back in again. And we're streaming live not only to Facebook, but also YouTube and Periscope all at the same time. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Nice. The other nice bit of this is I can download the audio content. I can put it up into a podcast, which we've just started Lead Live. I can jam it into a Lead Live podcast. So there's lots of different ways you can manipulate all of these streams and utilize them to reach a lot of people. So I would just say, keep exploring the technology, keep exploring, especially the tactile. I've loved that piece with the resurrection eggs today. And so, but just explore and ask questions and get in online communities and see, like Josh said, see what's going to work for your church really well. So here we go. Final thoughts. Greg, you can go first. What's final thought about taking Easter online for you, bud?
So I would say this to all the folks listening and those who will listen later is, do what you can do and be gracious to yourself. You're not going to be able to do everything, and you're not going to be able to do what somebody else can do. So be gracious to yourself. So for me, I was a former web developer before being a pastor. And so I just shudder at the fact that I haven't updated our website and I don't have fresh graphics on Facebook. And you know what? That's okay. Yeah. That's okay. I am doing what I'm able to do, and I'm learning to be gracious to myself.
Good.
That's good. Kong, final thought from you?
Yeah, I mean, to echo what Josh and Greg said, be gracious to yourself. Figure out what works. What works for us doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you, but find ways to contextualize it to your congregation, to your setting. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. Something that's crossed our mind is, why can't we have Easter in the summer? If all these policies are lifted up, there's redemption there too. And so, let's find ways to celebrate Easter, not just in April, but, in the summer, every day, whatever day it may be. And so, so be kind to yourself. And, these are new grounds that we're all stepping in. And so figure out what it looks like for you.
That's good. Josh, final thought for you.
I agree with all of those things. Love one another well, be gracious to yourself and to one another. And as a ministry leader specifically, don't feel like you have to produce all the content yourself. I think one of the best things that we can do is invite other people in. Everybody's on their phone and computer nonstop anyway. For you to reach out and say, hey, can you read this scripture on your phone and send it to me? Like that's a 5-minute ask, and you've got that to put into your service for a Sunday.
Really good point. Really good point. Yeah, I can't stress it enough. Easter it's like springtime. It's coming. It's going to happen. Praise God. Like we celebrate it on Sunday mornings for a reason, is because it's just like that's in our Christian tradition. Every Sunday morning is a representation of our thinking back to Easter Sunday. Right. And so I feel like this is a new season, just like spring, like plants are starting to grow here in Ohio. They're starting to push through the soil. Some new ideas are pushing through to the surface. And I'm glad for this time of innovation. But I agree with them. Number one, take steps to mourn the fact you're not going to get the whole church family together. If you miss that, I think the Easter is going to be even more painful. You might just have to really slug it out. If you can mourn that first and then step into the newness or the springtime that this particular Easter presents to us, you might be able to lean into it in a whole different way and then see some really exciting pieces that you may want to continue to carry back when things are back to where we kind of were. I think this is going to put a lasting mark on us as a people, this generation. And so going back into church, can you still take these very tactile experiences and bring them back into the live environment, the church environment? I think that's going to be really cool. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. Your experience is so valuable, your openness and honesty about what God's doing in you and where you're still figuring it out. I deeply appreciate you guys. To the RiverLife Church family, blessings to you during this Easter season. And may God bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and give you an awesome Easter celebration together. Amen. Guys, thanks for being with us today. I'm going to kick you out of this. Josh and I are going to wrap this sucker up, and we'll see you guys on the flip. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, boys.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, guys.
I almost kicked myself out. All right.
That
Josh.
Sounds about right.
Hey, let's tell everyone about our next guest. I know that we've waited all the way in the end to kind of give the surprise, but man, we've got a doozy coming up on Monday. I'm so excited about it.
So who is going to be here on Monday?
Monday, I thought was Rob Raymer. Is Rob coming Monday?
Thursday.
Next Thursday. Oh, okay, then we don't have Monday. Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I was hoping it was Monday. I'm so excited.
Thursday of next week, Dr. Rob Raymer is going to be joining us to talk about what God may be doing to bring a revival in the church during these days. Really excited to have him on. So a week from today, he'll be with us and really looking forward to that conversation.
Oh, okay, cool. A week from today. Sweet. So we'll send out information about that conversation. Put that one on your calendar. 2 p.m. Eastern, Thursday. Dr. Rob Raymer talking about revival. I think that's going to be amazing. Amazing. That guy, I'm just going to mute myself and he's just going to talk and it's going to be amazing.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, hey, we'll be back on Monday, 2 p.m. For another Lead Live and another great guest. We just have to figure out who that's going to be. But Thursday, Dr. Rob Raymer, it's going to be hot.
If you want to be our guest,
let us know. We'd love to have you on the show. All right, Josh. Hey, have a great day, bro. Appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
You too, man. Have a great one.